I'm Detective James, and this is the cases the news forgot.
I need to say this clearly before I start. This is not a ghost story. There are no monsters, no shadows crawling on walls, no jump scares. This is a case file that was sealed not because it was fake, but because the people who stayed on it too long began losing parts of themselves. Names, time, memory. And I know how that sounds. I would have dismissed it too. I'm Detective James Wild. I've worked missing persons, cold cases, internal affairs. I've seen people lie, break, confess to things they didn't do, just to make the noise stop. But this case didn't break people. It erased them. The file was marked resolved when I found it. No suspect, no victims listed, no outcome. Just a building address and a handwritten note taped inside the folder. Do not reopen. That was it. No signature, no date. I didn't find the file because I was looking for it. I found it because it kept showing up on my desk. Same thin folder, same scuffed corner, same handwriting. Every time I returned it to records, it came back. At first, I assumed clerical error, someone misfiling, a system glitch. But then I noticed something that made my stomach drop. The timestamp on the intake log showed I had checked the file out before. Multiple times, weeks apart, and I had no memory of doing that. I asked records if anyone else had accessed it. They said no. I asked if they remembered me bringing it back. They hesitated, then said yes. But they couldn't tell me when. That's when I opened it. Inside were incident summaries that didn't read like reports. They read like apologies, security personnel describing events they couldn't fully recall. Office employees signing statements they didn't remember giving. Maintenance workers requesting transfers without explanation. And threaded through all of it, written in the margins like someone couldn't help themselves, were rules, not procedures. Rules. Never work alone after 6 p.m. Never take the elevator if the lights flicker. Never trust the floor number display. And the one that made me stop breathing for a moment. If you lose track of time, leave immediately. Even if it means breaking protocol. That doesn't come from superstition. That comes from experience. The building itself was ordinary. That's the worst part. Municipal Archive and Permit Office. 4 floors above ground. 1 basement level. Built in the early 90s. No history of deaths. No structural issues. No known hazards. But it had a reputation. People joked about it the way office workers joke about bad elevators or broken printers. You'll lose an hour in there. Time moves weird in that place. Don't stay late. The joke stopped when people started forgetting entire days. 1 clerk was reported missing for 6 hours. Search was initiated. Police notified. She walked out of the building on her own. Didn't know why everyone was panicking. Her watch said 4:12 p.m. security footage showed her entering at 9:03 a.m. No exit recorded. She couldn't explain where she'd been. She didn't quit. She transferred departments and refused to talk about it again. Another man, night security, was found sitting in his car in the parking structure at 3:40 a.m. Engine cold. Doors unlocked. He had clocked out at midnight. He told responding officers he was waiting for his shift to end. His shift had ended 4 hours earlier. When I pulled the building's maintenance logs, I noticed something subtle but consistent. Elevator malfunctions, floor indicator errors, calls placed from non-existent extensions, all marked resolved, always resolved. No repairs logged, no parts replaced, just resolved. The last report in the file came from a janitor. He'd been with the city for 15 years. Solid record, no history of mental health issues. He called dispatch at 2:17 a.m. The recording still exists. His voice wasn't panicked. It was tired. He said, "I think the rooms are copying themselves." Dispatch asked him to clarify. He paused for a long time, then said, "I've already cleaned this hallway, but it's back, and I don't think I'm the one moving." The call ended there. No follow-up report. No incident number. The janitor never returned to work. Not because he disappeared, because he resigned in person the next morning. He handed in his badge and said only one thing to his supervisor: "Don't let them convince you it's normal." I went to the building 2 days later. Not at night, not alone, middle of the afternoon, busy hours, phones ringing, people moving. I told myself that if something was wrong, it would show itself clearly. That's how investigators think. We believe truth announces itself. I signed in at the security desk. The guard nodded at me like he recognized me. I asked if we'd met before. He said yes, said I'd been there earlier that day. That's when I felt the first crack of unease, because according to my calendar, I hadn't. And when I turned the sign-in book toward myself, my name was already written there. Same handwriting as the note in the file, and I don't remember picking up the pen. I didn't mention the sign-in book to the security guard. I signed my name again, deliberately different this time, just to prove something to myself. Changed the slant, pressed harder on the downstrokes, added a small hook at the end of the J. The guard didn't react, didn't question it, didn't even look down. That should have been my cue to leave. It wasn't. I walked past the front desk and into the main corridor. The building smelled like every municipal office I'd ever been in. Cleaner, paper, old carpet holding decades of conversations it didn't care about. People passed me. Real people, talking, laughing, complaining about printers. Nothing about the place felt abandoned or hostile. That's what made it dangerous. I took the stairs first. I always do when I'm uneasy. Elevators remove control. Stairs don't. The stairwell doors opened normally. Fluorescent lights, gray concrete, handrails worn smooth by thousands of palms. I climbed to the second floor. Checked my watch. 2:41 p.m. I walked the entire floor. Offices matched the directory. Room numbers were sequential. Exit signs pointed where they should. I checked my watch again. 2:41 p.m. That's when I stopped walking. I hadn't been distracted. I hadn't checked my phone. I hadn't stopped to talk to anyone. At least 10 minutes should have passed. I told myself not to overthink it. Time perception slips when you're focused. But when I reached the stairwell again and looked down, I noticed something small that shouldn't have mattered. The floor number plaque on the wall said 2. The one below it also said 2. Same font, same wear, same screws. I leaned over the railing. The level below that said 3, then 4, then 2. My chest tightened, not with panic but with recognition. This wasn't chaos. This was patterned. I took a photo with my phone. The image saved normally. I looked at it. All the plaques read correctly in the photo. I looked back at the wall. They were wrong again. I put the phone away and forced myself to breathe. I wasn't here to chase ghosts. I was here to verify claims. So I did the thing I'd avoided. I took the elevator. There were 2 cars, both doors closed, no indicator lights showing current floor. I pressed the call button. Nothing happened. I pressed it again. Still nothing. Then, quietly, the left elevator dinged. The doors opened. The interior looked fine. Mirrors, handrail, scuffed floor tile. The floor selection panel showed B, 1, 2, 3, 4. Nothing extra. I stepped inside. As the doors closed, I noticed something I hadn't before. There were no emergency instructions posted, no inspection certificate, no weight limit sign, just blank metal. I pressed 2. The doors closed fully. The elevator didn't move. No lurch, no vibration, just stillness. Then the floor indicator flickered. 2, 2, 3. The elevator began descending. That shouldn't have happened. The basement button wasn't lit. I pressed stop. Nothing. I pressed door open. Nothing. My ears popped. The lights dimmed slightly, not enough to trigger emergency backup, just enough to make everything feel underwater. The floor indicator stopped on something I hadn't seen before. It wasn't a number. It was a dash. Just a single horizontal line. The elevator stopped. The doors didn't open. For a moment, I thought that was it, that this was the trick. Lock someone in, mess with their sense of time. Then the doors opened. The hallway outside didn't match any floor I'd seen. Same carpet, same walls, but the ceiling was lower, just enough that I noticed it immediately. The lights hummed louder here, and the room numbers on the doors, they weren't sequential. 201 again. I stepped out without thinking. The elevator doors closed behind me. The sound echoed longer than it should have. I tried the call button immediately. Nothing. I turned back to the hallway. The air felt thicker, like the building was holding its breath. I walked to the nearest office door and looked through the glass panel. Inside was a desk, a chair, a filing cabinet, and a man sitting at the desk. He was facing away from me. Same build as me, same jacket, same posture. I didn't knock, I didn't speak, because I recognized the scar on the back of his right hand. I'd gotten it years ago, closing a car door too fast during a surveillance op. The man slowly turned his chair and looked directly at me. His eyes widened in confusion, then relief, then fear, and he said something I will never forget. "You came back again?" Before I could answer, the lights flickered hard enough to sting my eyes. When they stabilized, the office was empty. No chair, no desk, no filing cabinet. Just a room that looked like it had never been used. I felt my watch vibrate, a calendar alert. Meeting, 3 p.m. It was 4:27 p.m. I ran for the stairs. The stairwell door opened onto a floor labeled 1. I burst through the lobby doors and didn't stop walking until I was outside in the daylight. People were still coming and going. Cars still passed. The world hadn't changed. But when I checked my phone, I had 3 missed calls, all from my own number. I didn't go home after that. I sat in my car across the street for nearly an hour, watching the building like it might blink, watching people enter and leave like nothing inside could possibly be wrong. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Not fear exactly, but something closer to cognitive overload. The mind doesn't panic when it's terrified. It panics when it can't categorize what it's seeing. I replayed the moment in the office over and over. The scar, the voice, the way he looked relieved to see me. "You came back again," not "Who are you?" Not "What are you doing here?" Again. I called the number that had shown up as the missed calls. My own phone rang in my hand. I hung up immediately. That's when I made the decision that should have gotten me fired. I went back inside. This time, I didn't sign in. I walked straight past the front desk, nodded at the same security guard, same face, same posture, same blankness, and headed toward the elevators. Both were open, both empty, both waiting. I chose the stairs again. On the second floor, I found something new. A corkboard mounted beside the fire exit. It looked ordinary until I stepped closer. Pinned to it were printed stills from security footage. People exiting elevators, people entering offices, people standing in hallways. Every image had a red circle drawn around one face. Mine. Dozens of them. Different clothes, different hair lengths, some tired, some injured, all me. Underneath the board, written in black marker, "Do not interact." I felt something cold settle behind my eyes. This wasn't an accident. This was management. I pulled one of the photos free. It came off easily, like it had been replaced many times. On the back was a timestamp, 3 years ago. I hadn't been to this building 3 years ago. I hadn't even been assigned to this city. I took photos of everything. This time the images saved, but when I looked again, the corkboard was blank. No holes, no tape marks, just paint. I didn't hear footsteps behind me. I heard breathing. Slow, controlled, too close. James. I turned. It was him again. Another me, older this time. His hair was more gray, his eyes more hollow. He held his hands up slowly. "Don't freak out," he said. "No, that's how you get reset." I asked him what that meant. He looked past me, down the hall, toward the elevators. "They don't like overlap," he said. "Two versions in the same space creates instability." I told him I needed answers. He nodded. Then listened fast. He explained it in pieces, like someone who had told the story too many times and learned which parts mattered. The building wasn't haunted. It wasn't cursed. It was administrative, a correction site. Somewhere along the line, decades ago, maybe longer, someone realized that reality doesn't delete mistakes. It reassigns them. When timelines branch too subtly to collapse, missed deaths, avoided accidents, delayed choices, the system doesn't erase the anomaly. It files it. This building was where those files went. People who should have exited their stories but didn't. People who lived past expiration points. People like me. I asked why I could leave. He laughed once. "You think you did?" He showed me his phone. Same missed calls, same alerts, same calendar reminders. "Every time you leave," he said, "you think it's the first time." I asked him how long he'd been here. He didn't answer. Instead, he asked me something worse. "Do you remember the motel?" My stomach dropped. Mile marker 0, episode 9. I hadn't told anyone about the part where I woke up with a room key in my pocket days later. I asked him what happens to the people who don't leave. He finally looked scared. They stabilize. The lights flickered, not like before. This time, alarms began sounding, soft at first, then layered, then overlapping. A woman's voice came over the intercom, calm, pleasant. "Overlap detected. Please remain where you are." The older me grabbed my arm. "Run," he said. "They'll decide which one of us stays." I asked him which one was supposed to. He met my eyes. "The one who already belongs here." He shoved me toward the stairwell. I ran. Behind me, I heard footsteps, but not just one set. Dozens. The stairwell twisted as I descended. Floors repeated. Numbers changed. I burst into the lobby and nearly collided with the security guard. For the first time, he spoke. "Sir," he said gently, "you forgot to check out." He handed me a clipboard. On it was a sign-out sheet. My name filled the page. Same handwriting, different dates, all signed, all final. I dropped the clipboard and pushed through the doors into daylight. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. It was my voice. Tired. Resigned. "James," it said, "if you're hearing this, you made it further than most. Don't come back. Don't investigate the gaps. And whatever you do," the line crackled, "don't take the elevator again." The call ended. When I turned around, the building entrance behind me was gone. Just an empty lot. No foundation, no sign, nothing to prove it was ever there, except one thing. In my pocket. A laminated badge, no agency name, no logo, just a number, and the words, "Clearance, temporary." I didn't go home after that. Home felt like a place that could disappear if I turned the key too hard. Like a location that only existed as long as I believed it did. So I sat in the car with the engine off, watching the empty lot where the building had been. The snow was already covering the tire tracks. In another hour, there would be no proof I'd ever stopped there at all. That scared me more than the building itself. I kept replaying the moment the elevator doors closed. Not the sound, not the motion, the feeling, the subtle sense that I was being filed away, like paperwork sliding into a drawer that hadn't been opened in years. The badge in my pocket vibrated. Not a phone, not a notification, just warmth. I pulled it out again. The surface looked different now. Scratched, older, like it had been handled by people who didn't exist anymore. Clearance, temporary access, conditional return. Status unresolved. I laughed, not because it was funny, because laughing felt like proof I was still me. I drove back to the precinct just before dawn. The parking lot was half full. Same cars, same crooked streetlight, same peeling paint by the entrance. But the building smelled different inside, like dust and electricity. My desk was exactly where I left it. My coffee mug still half full, cold ring dried at the bottom. A crime scene photo was open on my monitor. I didn't remember opening it. The case number didn't exist in our system, but the victim did. A man in his 30s, found alive, no injuries, no explanation for why he'd been missing for 4 days. 4 days spent on a floor that wasn't supposed to exist. I checked the timestamps. He'd entered an elevator at 8:42 p.m., exited at 8:43 p.m. Security footage showed nothing in between, but there was something else. A reflection in the elevator mirror. Someone standing behind him. Someone who looked like me. That's when the files began opening on their own. Not hacked, not corrupted, authorized. Folders nested inside folders, each one labeled with calm, bureaucratic language that didn't belong anywhere near human lives. Spatial anomaly containment. Residual awareness subjects. Post-extraction stability. I wasn't reading investigations. I was reading maintenance logs. There were hundreds of entries, thousands maybe. Locations all over the city, all over the country. Hotels that reappeared under new names. Stairwells that never reached the same floor twice. Buildings removed from maps, but not from memory. Most people passed through them without noticing. A skipped minute, a wrong turn, a bad dream they blamed on stress. But some people noticed. Those people were marked. I scrolled until I found a familiar name. Mine. The file was thicker than it had any right to be. Photos I didn't remember being taken. Reports I didn't remember writing. Dates where I was apparently active, while officially on leave. There were annotations in the margins. Not typed, handwritten scans. Subject shows resistance to narrative smoothing. Memory bleed persists beyond correction window. Exposure increasing despite safeguards. And then, the line that made my hands shake. Recommend reassignment or reintegration. I didn't know what reintegration meant, but I was certain I wouldn't like it. I slammed the folder shut. The screen went black. For a moment, I thought the power had gone out. Then words appeared. Not a message, a question. Do you remember when this started? I thought about the first case that never sat right with me. The first time a witness described a room that couldn't exist. The first time I'd felt like the city had blinked. I typed back, "Yes." Another pause. "Do you remember agreeing?" That's when I realized the worst part. This wasn't something done to me. At some point, some version of me had said yes. Maybe I'd been offered answers. Maybe I'd been offered control. Maybe I just wanted the world to make sense. I stood up from my desk and walked to the bathroom. The mirror above the sink flickered. For half a second, my reflection lagged behind. Not delayed, deciding. There were dark circles under my eyes I didn't remember earning. A thin scar along my jaw that felt older than my face. I pressed my palm to the glass. The reflection did the same, but not at the same time. I left the precinct before anyone else arrived. I didn't sign out. I didn't log anything. I don't think the system noticed. Or maybe it did. I've been careful since then. I avoid places that feel too quiet. I take stairs. I write everything down, even the things that feel stupid. Especially the things that feel stupid. Because the more I remember, the less stable things become around me. Streetlights flicker when I pass. Elevators hesitate. Rooms feel like they're holding their breath. And sometimes, just sometimes, I catch people looking at me the way I used to look at anomalies, like they can tell I don't quite belong where I am. If you're listening to this because you're curious, stop. Curiosity is how this starts. If you're listening because something like this happened to you, then you already know it's too late to pretend it didn't. They don't erase people, they reassign them. And once your file exists, once your name is logged as an exception, the world stops trying to make sense for you. So if you ever find yourself in a place that feels unfinished, like it's waiting to see what you'll do, don't stay. Don't ask questions. And whatever you do, don't let anyone hand you a badge you didn't earn. Because temporary clearance isn't permission. It's a warning. And the moment it expires, something will come to make sure you're put back where you belong.